What's going on, family? Listen, I hope y'all are doing well during this quarantine, this lockdown. I'm about to name this thing quarantine tapes. But one thing that I realized is that uh a good friend of mine said it like this: pressure bust pipes, and an already strenuous, difficult situation or relationship or marriage, something like a quarantine can really put an extra level of added pressure on an already stressful situation. Even or on the other hand, if you have a good marriage and everything was kind of cool, but you had all of these different outlets, just time and time again, pressure can add unnecessary and unplanned stress on situations. And today with me, I have one of my dearest friends, my brother, eternal and fraternal, the most noble, the Dr. Derren Thompson. What is going on, sir?
Hey man, how are you?
Oh man, I'm great. Well, listen,
Good,
so
good.
so so for today, so tomorrow is my 8-year anniversary.
Yeah.
So to honor that 8 years, I really wanted to talk about marriage and how to strengthen your marriage, and especially a time like this, if we all at home, this can be an opportunity to put more pressure or more stress on your marriage, or it could be an opportunity where you can dive in deep in the other direction. No pun intended. I hear you, Windows. And and help strengthen the existing relationship that you already have.
Exactly.
So it could be either or. But Derren Thompson, he's a pastor, he's a leader, he's a coach. But the reason why I wanted to bring him on here today is because he does marriage counseling. He has a course. Also, even on Monday nights on his Facebook, you can find him on Facebook at Dr. Derren A. Thompson on Facebook. He does a 30-minute coaching call, if you will, or a Facebook Live about marriage and what you can do through your marriage. So, but today we want to talk about three quick things, and I kind of want to allow him to kind of be the expert here for us today. But I want to talk about three practical ways that you can use this quarantine time, this stay-at-home time, to help strengthen your marriage. Yeah. So what's the first one you got for us?
Well, before we can even talk about what we really need to do, we really just need to understand some of the background. And so it's important while we're in the middle of this pitiful pandemic, the divorce rate continues to rise. So right now, every 13 seconds, somebody's getting divorced. That ends up to being 277 divorces per hour, 6,646 divorces per day. And you can just kind of see the numbers go on and on and on. I mean, over 2 million people are getting divorced every year. That really ends up to being one marriage out of every two will end in divorce. So then what can we do? We've got to do something. What we're finding is that people aren't staying together. They aren't praying together. They aren't talking to each other. So if we had to come up with three things during this quarantine, the first thing would be is to just have open and honest communication. I mean, open and honest communication. And sometimes, Trevor, we look at that and we think, you know what, everybody knows to just have open and honest communication. But you'd be surprised the number of couples that I meet with that think it but never say it. They feel it but never express it, never explain what it is that they're going through and what they're feeling. And so it's really important to really just kind of have open and honest communication. We can talk about how we can just come up with some communication plans and really just have a time of communication, agreeing that we're going to communicate. It just goes on and on and on. But open and honest communication in my 22 years of marriage. So I'm celebrating you today. Kudos to you for tomorrow for celebrating 8. And so you probably can attest to the fact that there has to be some times when you just kind of pause and say, you know what, we really need to talk about this, even if it's painful.
Yeah, one of the it's great you say that. One of the things that Melissa and I did was Tuesdays and Thursday nights after the kids went to bed, put the kids to bed about 7:30, and we spent Tuesdays and Thursdays from 7:30 to 8:30 was a time where we had kind of this honest, open communication thing. Like there was no TV, and it wasn't always deep. Like, all right, hey, listen, I'm ready to roll. But it was just like, I think some of those questions, like how was your day, can kind of get numb and jaded, and we say, hey, it was cool, but like, how are you doing? How you feeling? Especially in a time like this. Shoot, I asked my daughter, I was like, how you feeling about being home? And the answer that I got was really, I mean, it blew me away. But how often are we really asking our spouses, like, honestly, how are you doing? How are you feeling? How can I be better? How can I be a better husband? How can I be a better wife? What things am I doing that are like, what am I doing that bothers you? So
absolutely. And sometimes that starts off really great, but then sometimes it can just kind of go down a very slippery kind of slope. But I have to be open to that. That's that whole reason why we say open and honest. That I'm gonna tell you how I really feel. I'm gonna tell you what it is that I need. I'm gonna tell you if you're meeting my expectation, and then I want to know, am I meeting your expectation too? So during this quarantine, everybody is at home. We're in each other's space, trying to get in the bathroom at the same time, eating lunch at the same time. How are you feeling about that? And so if we can just be open and honest, even about the things that I think you may be a little concerned. And then I use my opening statement whenever we want to just have some dialogue. I use the opening statement. Hey, can I say something to you without you being offended? Or can I say something to you without you being frustrated? Because I get you in agreement with me on the onset. That way I can hold you accountable for the outcome.
Yeah. See, I'll be honest. I might be one of the small percentage that, hey, that I'm ready to fight when you say, if you do say that. Can I be? So now go and say what you want to say now. No, but that's good. Cool. So the first one is open and honest communication. I think that an easy takeaway from this is having, like you said, is having a communication plan. If you fail to plan, you plan to fail, and whatever you heard a leader say it like this. He said, whatever is important to you, then you'll schedule it and put it in the schedule. So I think the first big step take away from this one, or application point, if you will, is to get with your spouse to find a day or a time or whatever to be able to say, all right, for this hour, on a regular basis, we're going to sit down, communicate, and have honest time of communication.
And it's time to even write that down. I mean, just if my day is going to be Wednesday around pizza, then I'm gonna write some stuff down so that I come to the meeting prepared with some open and honest things. It will do wonders for your relationship.
No, absolutely. One thing I have, and I'm gonna see if I can show it real quick. So one thing I had, well, probably can't see it. I have it on my calendar. It's an alarm that goes off at 5 o'clock every day. And this says quiet time with the kids, and 8:30 is checking with Melissa. So yes, every evening like that.
See, that's why you've been married 8 years.
See,
some couples that can't get out of the 8-month period because they refuse to schedule that.
Yeah.
And I'm telling you, and the best time, we're gonna go on to number 2, but the best time to have to create a communication plan is when you don't need it. And so sometimes couples are in the heat of it. And you want to talk about a plan? No, we needed to have had a plan long before we get to this spot. So we definitely need to make that plan. In fact, when I'm meeting with couples in premarital counseling, we set a plan in place that we're going to use when we really don't need it.
That's good. All right. First one is open line of communication. What's the second one?
Second, I've got to be open to compromise. Open to compromise. It's no longer about what it is that I want, what it is that I need. Me, give me, lend me, can you spare? It's about coming to the table and saying, hey, I like to eat dinner at 5 o'clock. You like to eat dinner at 8 o'clock. Let's compromise. Can we eat dinner at 6:30 or at 7?
Absolutely.
Let's just kind of come and take the I out and really bring the connective, bring the force that connects us together. Remember, the two becomes one. And so when we're able to come together and compromise, one of the things I can just say, in 22 years, I recognized that I was a trip. One of the things I learned was that I was a trip and I was not open to compromise. Type A kind of person. It was the way that I wanted it, and that was it.
Yeah.
We wasn't talking about it. No. I grew up, man, and sometimes the way we grow up can sometimes mess us up. And so I grew up in a place where, forsake laundry, My mother taught us that you had to wash clothes, dry them, fold them, and put them away all in the same day. So I got married, and my wife want to wash it today, fold it tomorrow, and put it away the next day. That drove me crazy, and I'm just like, I had to get to a place where we were able to compromise and come up with something that was really going to be effective. Because I was always taught that you can never complain about what you permit. And so I had to learn to compromise. I had to learn, and that's something that's learned. A lot of times people don't come to the table with it. You learn how to compromise. And one of the things in doing that, you recognize that, you know what, it's really not that serious. Like, you know, what difference does it make whether the clothes are folded today?
Absolutely.
As long as it's clean clothes. So, you know, stuff like that, that clean as you go in the kitchen. Another big one for me. You know, I'm a cook. You got to clean up. Don't come in. So I had to learn to compromise. And I think that's key for people that just want to stay married. It can't always be the way that you want it.
That's good. That's real good. Yeah, I think one of the ideas for me is in premarital and stuff like that, I always ask people how much you willing to sacrifice.
Mm-hmm.
How much you willing to sacrifice. They said they'll ask me, I think we're ready to get married. I think we're ready to take that next step. And my question is always, how much you willing to sacrifice?
Absolutely.
Because you can't come to that compromise if you're not willing to sacrifice.
Absolutely.
But yeah, so being ready to lay it all down. That's what I'm saying. When you say, even when you just said the two become one, which is real. The interesting thing is, and I'm not saying you lose yourself, but what I am saying is there's a new set of standard that the two now become one make. So like there's a baseline of like, this is how we operate as a unit. So yeah, so it's a unified front. That's real. That's good.
Absolutely. And what I found is that when you decide that, you know what, I'm gonna take my strong man hat off, I'm gonna take that stance that says, you know, I got to be right. And I understand, you know what, at the end of the day, it really doesn't matter who's right. What matters is that we really can walk together and we can agree.
Absolutely.
So in compromising, I cannot agree to disagree. That is a term that we hear people say all the time. But when I compromise, I'm not agreeing to disagree. I'm just agreeing that we're going to agree.
Yeah.
I'm agreeing that, you know what, maybe there is another way. Maybe there's a different way. Maybe there's a better way than the way that I've been accustomed to doing it. So really just being open to compromise, especially during this season, you know, when everybody is at home and stuck in the house, compromising really becomes key. And it really helps us to just kind of move forward and have blitz in the house during this time. If we ought to be in the house until we are let out of the house, I got to be able to compromise. You know, sometimes I met with a couple recently, and they were frustrating and fighting about the fact that she grew up in a house where they ate fish on Friday. Well, you know, is that really worth us tearing our house up over whether we eat fish on Tuesday or whether we eat it on Friday? So really just being able to compromise.
That's good. That's good. All right. Number 2 was open to compromise. And I think, and I always like to give kind of like a homework assignment, but essentially a nice, easy way for this one is to see what your spouse's expectations are in certain areas. So if you find yourself arguing about the same thing over and over again, and it's for you, it's always the most menial thing, the most frustrating piece. Find out what her expectations are, or find out what his expectations are for this area, because if you can't manage, you got to be able to manage the expectations.
Absolutely.
There's an expectation that, like you said, that we're eating fish on Fridays, and Friday come and go. To go back to the first one, the communication piece. Right. If I don't know what your expectations are, and then you blow up about not having fish,
exactly,
there's nothing I can do. So find out what some of those expectations are based on the things that y'all always kind of find yourself kind of having some friction over.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And that's the reason why you just kind of sometimes you just need a coach. You know, the big thing is coaching versus counseling, and you know, just to find somebody, because sometimes a 3-minute phone call with somebody that's already been down that road 100%. Will just kind of help you to say, you know what, wow, you know, now that you're saying that, I can kind of see it. And so that whole community, you know, they all intertwine. We talked about that at the beginning. My communication is tight. I'm willing to compromise. Then I'm ready to go to number 3.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And number 3 is?
Number 3, I've got to be willing to enter the construction zone. understanding that marriage is like being in a construction zone. Sometimes you need boots, sometimes you need overalls, sometimes you need a hard hat. But you got to be willing that whatever it is, now my marriage will be different than your marriage. Your marriage will be different than the guy next door. And so I've got to be willing to just, that's, I'm working with semantics. I'm working with all the C's, but the bottom line is I got to be willing to do the work. I've got to get in and I've got to be willing to do the work, because a lot of times people think that marriage is going to stay at honeymoon stage all the time. And after that honeymoon is over, after the gifts are put up and the money is spent, you got to be willing to do the work. And I think that what happens many times is that we think that, things are just going to happen and I don't have to do anything. Nothing comes to a sleeper but a dream. And so I can't just dream about having a great relationship. I got to work at it. I mean, and I'm telling you, it requires some work, some hard work. There will be sweat. There will be tears. There will be moments of being really exhausted. But if you do the work, and then, it's really developing and designing, what does work look like for us? Our relationships are going to be different. And so work will look different for each person. But whatever that work is, you got to be willing to do it.
Now, that is a good one. This thing is it's a marathon, not a sprint. This is a crock pot, not a frying pan. I mean, there's always going to be tomorrow. And I like that, because marriage is a construction zone. And it's funny you say that. I remember we had our first daughter. My daughter will be 5 in June. So give or take 5 or so years ago, we had the baby, and we were going on dates. We went on a date like 3 times a week. It was great. We was just wherever, doing whatever. Right. We had my daughter. I loved it, but there was still small pieces of the relationship that I was missing, like the freedom to be able to do whatever we wanted to do and all that kind of stuff. And I was waiting for that season to come back around again.
Right.
And what I end up doing is I lost a lot of valuable time to be able to build, because I was like, well, look, when things get back to how they were, not realizing that life is progressing, we're moving forward, things are changing. So to go back to the construction zone piece, marriage is always going to be this construction zone of new seasons and of new projects, of new buildings. There's always going to be dirt on the road. There's always going to be caution tape up. And it's always going to be a progress. So really just take each season for the season that it is, and do what you can do to even the first 2 points, to have that open line of communication and the compromise piece. But yeah, you have any closing and any wrap up, any summary, a closing remark, or what?
So ultimately, this was great. Thank you so much. But the one thing that I would just say is when you're in that place of really deciding that you're going to do the work, really do the work, because after the dust is gone, after the bricks are gone, after what used to be frustrating and ugly and dysfunctional, once all of that is in place, it really leads to something really beautiful. I would never do it again. If I had to do it all over again, I'd marry the same person at the same time, and we do some of the same stuff. But don't let your marriage be one of the statistics in the divorces. 3 seconds, and just decide today, you know what, my marriage is going to work, and we're going to win while we're working. And so once you have that mindset, you'll live in bliss. But just recognize, if you fall into trouble, there's always some resources out there. Sometimes people are in trouble and they never raise their hand. It's kind of like the kid in the class that never raised his hand because he thinks that people will think things of him.
Yeah.
And so just raise your hand and just say, hey, I need some help in this area. And there will be people that will throw you that life vest.
That's good. That's good, man. Thank you so much for coming on here. Listen, slide over to Dr. Derren's Facebook on Monday nights, but he also has a class that I'm sure that you can hear more about on his Facebook. And tonight, well, right now was Monday, so I would encourage you to slide over there. What time is it? 7 o'clock?
7 o'clock. Marriage Monday.
Marriage Mondays with Dr. Derren. So thank you so much for being here with us today, sir. I appreciate you, man. And thank you so much for watching. So don't forget to go over to trevorchin.com. There we have our new normal worksheet, and that's one of the things that's on that worksheet is really working out to what this new normal is going to look like. And marriage is one of those boxes. Family goal is one of those boxes. So we want to continue to create a new space, a new normalcy for life as we know it. So y'all have a good one until next time.